A Karen insisted I date her son despite me clearly stating that I'm a boy. Things took a bizarre turn when her son unexpectedly kissed me on the cheek. Here's what happened next. I'm a 14-year-old kid, and I look like a girl just flat up. My chest is flat, but my face, if you saw me with a hoodie you wouldn't know what I am, guy or girl. I'm in high school. I'm about 5'4", so again I can see how they thought I was a girl. Backstory, I was hanging out with my friends and we went to a Burger King. It's about a 10-minute walk from my school. I have a Mexican candy selling business, so I was treating my friends. So we're walking up there, and my friends, I'm gonna call them Randy, Mike, Andrew. So Andrew's like 5'8", Randy is fat and 5'6", and Mike is about 5'5", and we call him an elf. Alright, you know the basics. So we were at Burger King and my friend tells me to go up and get him some 10-piece chicken nuggets, the other to say the same, so I get like 50 nuggets, and they grab a seat, so I bring out the nuggets and we sit down and eat them. We're all teenagers, so we're telling jokes. Andrew says something funny. I can't remember what he said now, but I remember it was funny. So we're all sitting here laughing, and my voice is kinda high and sounds like a girl's laugh, so this lady comes and sits down like right next to us. So I'm like, whatever, and don't even notice them. Suddenly Andrew has to go to the bathroom, and we are all still there telling jokes when this boy comes up to me and we start talking. Kinda weird. And these kids are in 7th or 6th grade. Hey there. Hey, wanna come sit with us? Looks back at his friends and gestures for me to come. Not really, I'm with my friends and I don't know you. Well then, my name's Dylan, nice to meet you. Okay, and I should care, because I want you to come sit with us. I don't want to? Fine, I'll ask what I wanted to over here. Will you go out with me? My friends are like WTF right now, but I pinch Randy and he taps Mike and they kinda get, don't say anything. Thing. Message, sorry buddy, but I'm going to have to say no. Oh really, come on, I could treat you better than that other kid who went to the bathroom. Well no, this kid walks off and I and my friend are laughing about this, and Andrew comes back, we fill him in on what's happening, and he starts calling me a charmer and a girl and stuff to poke fun at me. This kid comes back with his mom. I'm like WTF, and he starts trying to talk to me again. I don't know how to react at this point because this has never happened. This mom was crazy, so for the sake of this channel, she's Karen. My son told me you won't date him. Will you tell me why? Because I won't date him. Why is this a problem? My son is much better than that boy, she said, a boy in a very disgusted way. Lady, this is my friend, doesn't talk shit about him. I don't know who your son is and he just came up to me and asked me out. I don't want to be a girlfriend because I'm a boy. Bullshit. Your face and chest say otherwise. Now you date my son right now. My friend Randy says, she said no. Karen screams, see, your friend said you can't lie to me. Me to Randy, dude, why did you say that, Me, turning to Karen, hey lady, I'm a boy, leave me alone. You little bitch, I know you aren't, so date my son. Andrew kinda gets in front of me and tells her to leave. This kid pulls me in and kisses me on the cheek. You perverted fuck! Now I'm not going to lie here and say I punched him. Oh man, it's so much better. See, I'm a voice actor and I pride myself on my hentai moan. I was looking on Reddit and saw this post of, where this lady moans to get rid of Karen, so I did just that. I raised my voice higher and let out the moaniest, high-pitched anime moan I could. Literally made me blush and made me look more like a girl. The Karen is disgusted, and that's when the security comes in. They are like, WTF, are there people having sex? The guy asked what happened. My friends say this lady's son came up to me and her son kissed me. I moaned to get rid of them, and the Karen says that I'm a girl and they could treat me better. I take off my hood to reveal a buzz cut and they get the fuck out. The managers didn't know what to do. We told them it's whatever, and they were like, do you want ice cream? We're like, sure, and we enjoy our ice cream. My friends still bring it up to this day and are still amazed that I anime moaned in public since it was a private thing until then. I'm now the girl in our group. This was the weirdest thing in the world. This is not fake, and I'm kinda getting bullied for it at my school because the popular kids were there, so it's whatever, but it got me so much respect. Remember, always moan when a Karen touches you or her kid kisses you. An entitled mom, a nice guy's son, and a dose of sexual harassment/assault. That's some lovely variety, lol. This kinda reminds me of another story I read on here a while back where a guy was in a store or something with a friend or two and minding his own business, and a kid came up to him and started hitting on him and harassing him, and the guy kept having to tell the kid that he was a guy and wasn't interested, and the kid didn't like that. So he dragged his mom into it and they both started harassing him and trying to bully him into dating the kid. Well, it all comes to a head and dude ends up having to whip out his dick to prove he's a guy, lol. It amazes me just how clueless and ignorant some people are. Sorry you had to deal with that BS. This is a story on how my Karen boss demands I work despite my bloody hand injury, leading to a costly trip to the hospital. So I decide to sue her after she demands I pay for the bloody mess I created. I work in a warehouse as a 23-year-old male. It's a decent job, pays the bills, and I've been there for a couple of years. Recently we got a new manager. Let's call her Karen. This woman is something else. From the moment she stepped in, she acted like she was the boss of the world. It was clear that she had a god complex and seemed to enjoy power tripping. Now, I have a hobby of playing around with balisongs, also known as butterfly knives. I've been doing it for a while now and I'm pretty good at it. I decided to take it to the next level and try it out with a blade. Big mistake. I ended up slicing my hand pretty badly and had to get stitches. The doctor told me no heavy lifting for a bit, but I figured I'd be okay. On the day of my return to work, Karen starts bossing us around, and I'm thinking, cool, whatever, she's the boss. But then she starts demanding that I lift these heavy ass crates onto the shelves. I'm like, hold up, I can't do that with my hand like this, and I tell her that, but she's not hearing it. She says if I don't do it, I'm fired. I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place here. I need this job to pay my bills and support my fam. Karen, I can't lift those crates with my hand like this. I got stitches and the doctor told me no heavy lifting. I don't care about your stitches. You're here to work, not to make excuses. If you can't do your job, then maybe you're not cut out for this. But Karen, I told you about my injury and I can't do it alone. Can you please provide some accommodations or get someone to help me? No, I'm not going to coddle you. You need to work, and if you can't, then you're out. So I'm trying to lift this crate, and of course the stitches in my hand break and I'm bleeding all over the damn thing. I ended up toppling over and the 3 crates I was lifting fell on top of my arm. Blood-covered produce started rolling everywhere. Karen was furious, but not because I'm hurt. Nah, she's mad because the crate is ruined. She starts yelling at me, calling me a liability and says I have to pay for the crate. Meanwhile, I'm bleeding everywhere and my arm is fractured. They rush me to the hospital, and Karen doesn't even ask if I'm okay. She just calls me up and tells me to pay for the crate and the hospital bills. The confrontation went a bit like this. Karen, are you serious? You're my boss. It's your responsibility to make sure I'm safe at work and to take care of me if I get hurt. You're a blimey idiot. You should have known better than to try and lift a heavy crate with an injury. You're lucky I'm not suing you for damaging company property, and if you think you're getting a penny out of me, you're delusional. That's not fair. I told you about my injury and you refused to provide any accommodations. You should be held responsible. I don't understand your logic. But she's not having it. She tells me I'm fired if I don't pay up. So, I decide to lawyer up and file a complaint against Karen for negligence and refusing to provide a safe working environment. My lawyer and I gather all the evidence we can, including my medical records, witness statements from my coworkers, and messages of my attempts to inform Karen about my injury and request accommodations. We present our case to Karen and her legal team, and it's clear that she's not taking us seriously at first. She still thinks she can bully and intimidate us into backing down. But my lawyer and I hold our ground, and we make it clear that we're not going to let her get away with this kind of treatment. The case goes on for a few weeks, with Karen and her team trying to discredit our evidence and make us look like the bad guys. But we were prepared for their tactics and were easily able to prove that Karen was negligent in her responsibilities. In the end, Karen realizes that she's not going to win this case and decides to privately settle with me. She agrees to pay for all my medical expenses as well as compensate me for lost wages and emotional distress. I end up getting a quarter of my year's salary and all my medical bills covered. It was a huge relief and satisfaction for me. So that's my story on how I was paid out a lump sum of cash because of my balisong knife hobby and idiot boss. Wow, that crappy boss sounds like a real piece of work. I can't believe she would treat her employees like that. The way she refused to provide accommodations for OP's injury and then blamed him for getting hurt is just crazy. And to top it off, she expected him to pay for the damaged crate and his medical bills? Insane. I'm glad to hear that OP stood up for himself and took legal action against her. That payout must have been sweet. Karen needs to be held accountable for her actions and the way she treated her employees. It's not okay to treat people like that, especially when they're trying to do their job and support themselves and their families. My mother decided to hold my inheritance ransom because I told her that she should use a VPN. Yeah, so that happened. So, recently, my mother bought an Android TV box that can stream any new show or movie for free, which I told her was technically illegal. But her response was streaming isn't illegal because we aren't downloading the content, and I said 8 and left it. Turns out our internet service provider isn't too keen on this though, and throttles our whole network to unbearable speeds when the box is in use. However, the box will hog all the throttled bandwidth, so the movie will still stream, but every other device will be kicked off the network. When I told my mother about this, or ask them to just pause for a bit so I'm able to get any work done, her response is always, "I pay for the internet, and it seems to be working, so you can deal with not having internet while I'm watching TV." I've been dealing with this for 2 weeks now. I was disqualified from 2 job interview technical tests, had to plead to retake a midterm with my professor, and often get booted when I'm on a call with my girlfriend whom is long distance going to school and we only get 2 or 3 hours to talk a day. When they left for a bit today, I did some troubleshooting and found that a VPN fixes this problem. So when they came back, I told her that a VPN fixes the problem, and they should use one anyway since their activities are illicit, and it also helps keep their information safe. Her response, unsurprisingly, was, "I bought the box to stop paying for subscriptions. I'm not going to pay for something when the TV works just fine. You can live without internet." I thought she'd at least be reasonable, and I was going to offer to pay for half the yearly subscription to ExpressVPN, $100/WAR, but instead, I was just shocked and left. Shortly after she came to me and told me that I should just pay for the VPN because I'm the one who would be using it anyways, I told that's not how it works. I wouldn't be using it, but I'll split the cost with her. She didn't like that answer because she then started to go off saying, "You're 22 and you don't pay for anything. You should start at least paying for rent and to use our internet." Now I know that statement doesn't sound too bad, Reddit, and I agree, taken out of context, it's probably fine, but here is some background for context. My parents told me that I can live rent-free till I graduate college, which led me to go to the local university to save money and not have to pay for room and board. My tuition, on the other hand, is just barely covered through a small sum of money my grandfather left me when he passed, but the account holder's name is my mother's. If that doesn't cover my tuition, I would pay it myself out of pocket. My brother, on the other hand, moved out to go to college, and his financials are a different story. My mother fully pays for his tuition, room and board, and groceries so he doesn't have to work while he goes to school. The tuition and room and board together for him are almost 3x what my tuition alone costs, and yet she pays that without batting an eye. Anyways, to continue the story, my mother continued going off, telling me that starting now I'll have to pay rent. It'll be $1,200 a month. I have to pay for the VPN so I can access the internet. Also, I'll have to pay for the internet since you're the only one who uses it anyways, and finished off her list of demands by stating, also, the trust won't be covering your tuition anymore, so you need to pay me back the $26,000 that it's paid so far. I was silent and just left. I broke down into tears when I got to my car and just started driving. I haven't talked to her since and am just fuming that she would hold my inheritance ransom. I have 2 months till I graduate and was planning to just yeet out of here the day I do, but every month it's something else that's my fault and I have to pay for. It started off with groceries. I now buy over half the groceries and make dinner for me and my parents 4 days a week because you should start making us dinner since you should learn to cook. Then when I got my tax refund, she made me give her half of it because I did your taxes, so I deserve your tax refund. Which I didn't ask her to do. I just came home from work one day and she had already filed them. Same thing with the stimulus checks during COVID. You shouldn't have gotten the stimulus check, it should be mine since I'm your mother, after they didn't qualify because their income was too much. Me and my father are going to go to see a show tonight. He sees the stark contrast in the way she treats me compared to my brother and has even told me before that, "I know she treats you differently than everyone else and you just need to not cause a ruckus or stir up anything with your mother and just leave as soon as you graduate." But he won't actually stand up to her or oppose her on anything, so whatever she says goes. Wow, that's really tough. I can't believe your mother would hold your inheritance ransom like that just because you suggested she use a VPN. It's not like you were trying to tell her what to do, you were just trying to protect her from getting in trouble with the ISP and protect her own personal information. It's really unfair that your brother gets everything paid for and you're left to struggle. It sounds like your mother is being really selfish and not considering your needs or the consequences of her actions. It's really frustrating that you've had to deal with the slow internet and missed opportunities because of it. I hope you're able to find a solution and not have to pay for anything you don't have to. It's not fair that you should have to pay for rent or the VPN when it's not your fault that the internet is slow. Maybe you can talk to your father or another family member to see if they can help mediate the situation. Anyways, if you've enjoyed these stories, check out the video on the left where a Karen forces a person who can't walk to move seats on a train, or this random video on the right. My entitled mother-in-law threw my family heirloom engagement ring down a storm drain. I have seen a lot of crazy people in my life, but my potential future mother-in-law, who I'll refer to as Karen, is the absolute worst person I've ever met. I, a 30-year-old female, have been with my boyfriend, 31 male, for 8 months now. For the first few months, everything was amazing. He is the sweetest and most caring man I have ever been with. He likes to surprise me with fun dates and flowers for no apparent reason. The biggest surprise of all, though, was when I met his mother. I met his parents for the first time a few months ago. The first thing Karen said to me when I walked in the door was, "Are you Jewish?" I am not, and I am not particularly religious, but I was raised Catholic. Once I told her this, it was the beginning of the madness. She immediately stopped talking to me and acted as if I didn't exist. I was extremely nervous about meeting my boyfriend's parents, so this broke my heart. I was determined to make a good impression, so I kept trying to connect with her. This was a huge mistake, and I should have just let it go. Once we were all seated for dinner, she finally decided to try and make conversation. I have naturally red hair, and she asked me if my parents have the same color. I told that I have the same hair as my mother. She had the audacity to ask me, "Does the carpet match the drapes?" I had no idea how to respond, and just sat there stunned. Seeing my reaction, she said, "Don't worry, I will just ask my son about it later." I looked over at my boyfriend, who seemed equally as shocked, but he didn't say anything. She then started to go on about my hair being too curly. She told me that I really need to learn how to run a brush through my hair and think about my appearance more when I am out with her son. Then, when I didn't eat much at dinner, she gave me her version of a compliment. I was told it was good that I'm watching what I eat because it would be a shame if I got any bigger. This was just my first meeting with this woman. As soon as I got into my car, I burst into tears until I got home. My boyfriend was texting me and apologizing for his mother's behavior, but the damage was done, and I told him I needed time to think. He went into apology overload after this and started sending flowers to my office every day and leaving me messages begging me to talk to him. I finally agreed and we went out to dinner. He told me he spoke with his mother about her inappropriate comments and he swore it would never happen again. With this reassurance, I decided to give it another chance. Fast forward 2 weeks to when he invited me to come to a family birthday party. This time, I would also be meeting his sisters and grandparents. His grandparents and sisters are awesome people. They asked me normal questions about my job, family, and friends. His mother seemed to be avoiding me throughout the evening, and honestly, I was okay with that. I went to grab something from my purse and noticed that it was not where I left it. I looked everywhere, but I could not find it. I went and asked my boyfriend, and he began to help me look. He then got a strange look on his face, and he quickly went upstairs. I could then hear a lot of yelling begin upstairs. He came back down holding my purse after a few minutes and told me that we were leaving. Once we got in the car, I asked him what was going on. His mother had taken my purse so that she could see my driver's license. She intended to try and run a background check on me. He told me she had told him this earlier, but honestly had thought she was joking. I thought that it was best if I avoided any of his family functions for the time being. This worked out great for a while, and he went to any of his family parties alone. He would ask me each time before leaving if I was sure that I didn't want to go, but I always declined. Last week his family had their family reunion and he asked me to please come with him. I was very reluctant, but considering there would be so many people present, I didn't think she would pull anything. When we got there, everything was going great. I met his extended family and got to catch up with his sisters. His mother did seem to be shooting me death glares all night, but I brushed it off. Soon she came over and joined a table I was seated at with his sisters and some cousins. The conversation was pleasant as we were talking about his sister's children. His sister has a daughter who is 12 and is the same age as my niece. I then showed his sister a picture of my niece on my phone. His mother took a look at the screen and began to laugh. She told me she hopes that if me and her son ever have children that they don't look like my niece. My niece is beautiful, by the way, and she is only 12 years old. What kind of monster attacks a 12-year-old child's appearance? This was my breaking point, and I went off like a volcano. I started to scream at her and told her she is the most evil person I have ever had to disadvantage to meet. I told her if I ever did have children with her son, she can be certain she will never meet them because hell is too far to travel to. I am not 100% certain exactly everything that I said, but from what his younger sister later said, it was epic. She began to play the victim and wailed that I had just misunderstood her joke. My boyfriend came rushing over at this point and she threw herself into his arms, telling him I'm a horrible woman and he needed to throw me out right now. He told her that wasn't going to happen and to stop making a fool of herself. She seemed to accept this for a moment and sat back down. She just kept sobbing that I just didn't understand how to take a joke. Then something in her snapped as she noticed something that my boyfriend was holding in his hand and began to have another meltdown. I didn't understand what was happening at this point and just stood there watching a grown woman pitch a fit like a toddler. None of what she was saying made any sense to me as it was mostly just incoherent screaming, but I did pick up on many derogatory comments directed my way. My boyfriend then told me we were leaving and told me to grab my things. As I started to get ready, Karen made a lunge for my boyfriend's hand and grabbed the small box he was holding. She Than looked me dead in the eyes and said, "You will never have this ring, you little bish." She ran outside and threw the box down a storm drain. Turns out that my boyfriend was intending on proposing to me. He had just obtained his grandmother's ring while we were at the reunion. His grandmother is completely heartbroken because now her ring is down a storm drain instead of continuing on in the family as she had always wanted. I don't know where to go from here. I am devastated, confused, and exhausted. Can I ask him to never see his mother again? Is that my place to say something like that? I am sorry that my story is so long, but I really need to get this rant off my chest. Wow, you need to sit down with your boyfriend and explain that you're not going to tolerate that kind of nonsense. Y'all need to decide together how to handle her, starting with you having no contact with her and him not sharing an ounce of information about you with her. Then you need to figure out how to survive the wedding, children, etc. Anyways, if you've enjoyed these stories, feel free to click on one of the videos on screen or you're definitely the jerk.